Good morning, Jane.
Good morning, Ms. Comey.
Just a few follow-up questions from yesterday. First, how many, if any, trips do you remember taking with Sean to Las Vegas during your relationship?
I only remember one trip.
And do you remember about when that was?
I would say maybe 2023.
And are you estimating?
Yes.
Do you remember how you got to Las Vegas?
On Sean's plane?
On his private jet?
Yes.
And do you remember how long you stayed?
About 2 nights.
And do you remember generally what you and Sean did over those 2 nights?
He was hosting an event, and at the end we were together at a hotel.
Do you remember what happened at that hotel?
I do.
What happened?
Sean wanted entertainment for the night, so we had that.
And when you say we had that, what do you mean?
We had an entertainer there.
So did you have a hotel night?
Yes.
And did you have sex with the entertainer?
Yes.
And was that in generally the same way you described for us yesterday, following that same pattern?
Yes.
I want to ask you about certain phrases that may have been used during the relationship. When, if ever, did Sean refer to going off the grid?
I can't really remember, but that was a phrase that was used.
Do you remember what it meant or no?
It just meant to be free, to go off the grid and be carefree.
And when, if ever, did Sean use the word freak when communicating with you?
He used it various times in our relationship.
And in what context, if you remember?
To describe me.
To describe you?
Yes.
Can you explain what you mean?
He wants his freak.
And when he said he wants his freak, what did you understand Sean was telling you?
He wanted me to be wild and sexual.
Now, I want to pick up where we left off yesterday, talking about the pattern or routine of these hotel nights, okay? During hotel nights, usually, what, if any, protection would you and the entertainer use during intercourse?
None.
Why not?
Because that was my partner's preference.
And who is your partner?
Sean.
Did you ever ask Sean if the entertainers could wear condoms?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did you ever ask Sean if the entertainers could wear condoms?
Yes.
More than once?
More than once.
About how many times do you remember asking Sean if the entertainer could wear a condom while you were in the hotel room?
I can only recall twice.
What's the first one that you recall?
The first night with Dawn.
And what's the second time you recall?
One time was at a Miami hotel.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit, okay? About those 2 times, how did Sean respond?
He responded dismissive and kind of just almost, just in a sense, guilt tripped me out of it, and that it wasn't something that he wanted to see.
What was Sean's tone when he had these 2 conversations with you in the room?
A bit condescending, just wanted me to move on from the subject, as if it just wasn't going to happen, so stop asking.
In either of those conversations, did Sean explain why he did not want the entertainer to wear a condom when having sex with you?
Yes. He said he didn't want to see it, like a rubber while he was watching.
About how many times, if any, did you discuss having entertainers wear condoms with Sean when you were sober and outside of hotel rooms?
Can you repeat that question?
Yes, I can. Did you ever have any conversations with Sean when you were sober and not in a hotel room about whether the entertainers could wear condoms?
Yes.
About how many times do you remember having conversations like that with Sean?
Maybe a couple.
Do you remember about when?
Maybe early on in our relationship.
So approximately 2021 period?
Yes.
How did those conversations come up?
Sometimes, I don't remember specifics.
What do you remember?
I just vaguely remember those 2 times where I brought up the condoms and he brought up how these men were tested. And then just another time where I hinted at a condom, or I myself am asking the entertainer if he can wear a condom.
Do you know whether any conversations between you and Sean about whether an entertainer could wear a condom was ever recorded?
Yes.
How many recordings of this kind of conversation are you aware of?
1.
And could you tell us about that recording?
Yes.
This was one of the instances where I'm trying to ask the entertainer if he could wear a condom before we have sex, and he's trying to look for it. And Sean comes in and is asking what we're all trying to look for. Do you remember who this entertainer was?
Dawn.
Was this that first time with Dawn in May of 2021 or a later time?
A later time.
Do you know how that conversation was recorded?
The iPhone was recording me.
Why was an iPhone recording you and Dawn?
Because Sean liked recording me and entertainers.
Video or audio recording?
video.
So have you seen this video?
Yes.
And did you watch it recently?
Yes.
Have you also listened to audio of it?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to pull up, please, what's in evidence as Government Exhibit AX70179B, and I'd like to pull up as an aid Government Exhibit AX70179BT. Jane, did you listen to this exhibit in the last couple of days?
Yes.
And did you review the transcript that's up on the screen?
Yes.
And did you confirm that the transcript accurately captures the voices that you can hear on the recording?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that we play the recording starting at 8 minutes and 25 seconds, and it's fine to play it for the whole courtroom. I've checked it to make sure it's consistent with Your Honor's sealing orders. Ms. Gavin, would you please play the recording starting at 8 minutes and 25 seconds? Jane, I want to ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm going to play this again and pause and ask you some specific questions about it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so first, whose voices did we just hear on that recording?
It was myself, Sean, and Dawn.
And what were you asking Don to do at the beginning of the audio we just heard?
I was asking Don if he could see if there was a condom around and if he could wear a condom.
And then what did Don do in response?
He started looking for one.
And then what? And then who came into the conversation at that point?
Sean?
Had he been out of the area where you and Don were at that point?
Yes.
And when he came in, what did Sean say?
What are you guys doing? What do you want? And I said condoms, or I think Don said he's looking for a condom.
Is that your independent memory, not what you hear on the audio?
Yes.
And then when you later in the conversation said you promised, what were you referring to?
I'm referring to a conversation I had with him that I just preferred to wear condoms and if we can wear condoms.
And in that, had that conversation taken place before this hotel night that was being recorded?
Yes.
And what had Sean told you in that conversation before this hotel night?
That it was fine.
That it was fine?
That we could wear condoms.
And then what happened when you actually got in the room?
I wasn't able to wear condoms.
Ms. Gavin, can we please play one more time? And let's start a little earlier. At 8 minutes and 20 seconds, please. I'm going to ask you to pause at a couple places. Pause it, please, Ms. Gavin. When you said, I think they're in the chair, what were you referring to?
Condoms.
You can go ahead and play it. Thank you, Ms. Gavin. Pause it, please. What did you understand Sean meant when he said you were just taking that?
That it's already happened without a condom, so why am I looking for a condom now?
What's already happened without a condom?
Sex. Intercourse between me and Don.
We can keep playing it. Thank you, Ms. Gavin. Jane, when Sean said, if you don't touch yourself right now, what did you understand he was saying?
I understood he was saying if you don't just move on from this and just forget about it.
Did you understand then what?
I just understood that my request is just going to be denied, so just move on from this request.
And what was your request?
Wear condoms.
Why did you feel like you needed permission from Sean to have the man who was having sex with your body wear a condom?
I don't know. I'm just still trying to process even that.
Can you explain what you mean when you're saying still trying to process?
Objection, Your Honor.
Well, hold on. Hold on for a second. Ms. Comey, could you rephrase that question that you asked?
Jane, I'd asked you why you felt like you needed permission from Sean to have the man who was having sex with your body wear a condom.
Objection to that as well, Your Honor.
She already answered that, Your Honor.
Yes, that's overruled, so...
And your answer was you're still trying to process. And I'm asking if you could explain to the jury what you mean when you answered you're still trying to process.
Objection.
That's sustained.
Your Honor, can we have a sidebar?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I just don't understand the objection and why it was sustained, and I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding something.
Ms. Garagos?
Mr. Agnivolo can take this.
I think it's not inappropriate. It's a question that delves into psychology and questions that I don't know that this witness is qualified to answer. So I don't know what the answer seems. If the witness is going to be asked to talk about factual things, that's one thing. But to get into what it means for her to be processing things...
Well, you agree that she can't testify as to historical facts, exactly what happened, right?
Of course.
She can also testify as to her understanding of things she experienced or things she heard, those types of things in real time, right?
Understanding within reason, Your Honor.
Of course. And so I understood the objection to be that this is not on any of those types of issues. She said that she's still trying to process it, which I understood as being that she didn't have an explanation for that. So then when Ms. Comey asked for her to explain what does that mean, it's what does that mean when she was saying that she didn't have an answer to that question. So I thought there was at least some vagueness in your question, and there was some lack of understanding from the witness.
I appreciate that.
That's why it was sustained.
I appreciate that, Your Honor. I expect what she will say is that she is still trying to process the fact that this man had so much control over her body, which is what she said to me when I've asked her that question before. When I talked to her about this very recording, what she said to me is, I'm still trying to process the fact that he controlled me. He owned my body.
I think that that's a separate line of inquiry and might be an appropriate line of inquiry, but right now we're talking about a particular event and why in that moment certain things happen, why she allowed things to happen. And I don't think you're drawing any objections to those types of questions. I think it's on this, which is about what is happening right now. It needs to be rephrased.
Okay, I understand.
I don't know that the subject matter is out of bounds.
Okay.
I think it's a question to form.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's what I wanted to understand.
Ms. Garagos?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I would also ask that Miss Comey not say sex with your own body. I don't like that tone of...
As to that question, if an objection had been raised the first time around, then I may have asked Ms. Comey to rephrase the question. I think it was just a phrasing issue. I don't think the substance of the question was improper.
Okay.
But I understood it as being, the second time around, a form objection.
Yes.
So, Ms. Comey, if there's an objection...
And if going into that right now, I would just ask that be rephrased, Your Honor, to not argue like that.
Yes.
Thank you.
We can take this down. Thank you, Ms. Gavin. Jane, in that moment that you were just listening to, why didn't you just insist that Don wear a condom?
Because I didn't want to disappoint my lover.
And what did you think would happen if you disappointed Sean?
That he would be unhappy.
And what happened when he was unhappy in your experience?
Objection.
That's overruled.
He would just be not happy, just not in a good mood or satisfied with the night.
And what would his demeanor be toward you?
Agitated.
Jane, in a typical hotel night, how would intercourse with an entertainer end?
With them finishing on me?
When you say finishing, do you mean ejaculating?
Yes.
And when you say on me, do you mean your body?
Yes.
And then after that, what would you and Sean do?
Have sex?
And would you clean up the ejaculate in between?
No.
Why not?
Because that's not what he wanted.
Not what who wanted?
Sean.
After you and Sean had sex during a hotel night, what would typically happen next?
As far as...
So if you just finished a round that we talked about yesterday with an entertainer, and then you and Sean had sex afterwards, typically, what would happen next?
He just wanted me to stay like that and have sex with all of that around us.
And then afterwards?
Just play around with it and...
Now, after you and Sean finished having intimate time together, what would you do before starting another round, either with the same entertainer or a different entertainer?
I would just take a shower and get ready for the next one.
Would you put on the same outfit or a different outfit?
Different outfit.
In a typical hotel night, about how many rounds of the kind of sex that you talked about yesterday with entertainers and then with Sean would you go through?
Objection.
Grounds?
Same as yesterday's objection to the same question.
That's overruled.
I would say every entertainer was different. Maybe sometimes it would be one round with one, or it could be up to 3 with another.
Who decided how many rounds you would do in a single hotel night?
Sean.
Who decided how many entertainers you would be with in a single hotel night?
Sean.
Did you ever get tired during these nights?
Yes.
Who decided whether you could stop when you were tired?
Sean.
Are you okay to keep going, or do you need to take a break?
I just need 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
Okay. I'm sorry. What was your question?
The question was, when you got tired and wanted to stop, how, if at all, did you communicate to Sean that you wanted to stop?
I would just give subtle cues that I was tired. Just that I would say I was hungry, or I would lay down, or I would just kind of give him little faces.
What kinds of faces?
Just small gestures.
And when you gave these subtle cues, did Sean react the same way each time?
Yes.
What was his reaction each time you gave him one of these subtle cues?
Just he would say, You're not getting tired on me, are you? Let's just finish strong, or let's end on a high note.
Why didn't you just say you were done and you wanted to stop?
I don't know.
Jane, what would Sean give you, if anything, to keep you awake, to keep having sex with entertainers?
Ecstasy.
And how much ecstasy would you usually take in a single hotel night?
A lot.
Objection time period.
That's fair.
In a typical hotel night between May of 2021 and October 2023, one that followed the same pattern we talked about yesterday, typically, about how much ecstasy would you take in a single hotel night?
A lot. It varied. I don't know, but a lot.
Typically, would you take multiple doses of ecstasy in a single hotel night?
Yes.
Objection.
It's overruled.
Who gave you all of that ecstasy?
Sean.
Jane, did you ever cry after one of these hotel nights?
Yes.
How many times can you remember crying after one of these hotel nights? I'm sorry?
2 times.
Are those the 2 times that stand out in your memory?
Yes.
Would you tell me about the first you remember, please?
I just remembered that there was a night that I thought we were going to have just a date night, and it would be one-on-one. He said there would be an entertainer, but just for a little bit. I hung on to those words of just a little bit, meaning that it could be just something quick. And he said it would just be something quick. And what was something quick ended up being like 18 hours of that. And I just remember it was 3 rounds of this guy. And at the very end, I just remember Sean saying he had to leave. And I just was so high and just feeling so lonely and just sad. Leave me feeling like that. And I just started crying. And I just was masking it and just saying that I was missing him. But really, I just went through all of that and was feeling terrible that he was just going to leave me alone. And I just remember that it was just a bad memory.
And when you cried, were you alone or were you with someone else?
I was with Sean.
So did you cry in front of Sean?
Yes.
Do you remember where this particular hotel night happened?
At the Waldorf in Beverly Hills.
Do you remember about when this was?
Maybe early on in our relationship.
Do you remember how Sean reacted when you started crying?
Yes, he said, "Are you crying?" And just looked almost disgusted with my face.
What ended up happening after this?
After that, he just started playing music, started smoking, and just kind of had me sit next to him. And I just remember just clinging onto him like I just wanted to be right next to him. And he said he would move things around with his family and that I could come with him. And I just remember when I came home with him, I just up under him, I just really wanted to feel help him after a night like that. And I just wanted to feel be in his arms.
Jane, do you remember about when was the second time you cried after one of these hotel nights?
Yes.
About when was it?
I think just in the middle of our relationship.
And do you remember where it happened?
In bits and pieces.
Okay, and do you remember whether you were alone or in front of someone when you cried the second time?
The second time I was in the shower with him after one of these nights, and I remember I was really blacking out this night, that I just remember going from...
Okay, let me pause you. So Jane, is your memory of this particular night spotty?
Yes.
Can you just start at the beginning and tell us what you do remember from this night?
I just remember we were together at his house, and then the next thing I know, I just remember being in a hotel, and I just remember his butler, and I was so high, and I just remember embracing his butler and just feeling really high because it was just weird that I embraced his butler like that. And then I just remember I'm having sex with Paul, and then I remember being in the shower with Sean, and I just started crying. And he's like, "Don't do that right now. I'm high. I can't see this. I'm too high. I cannot be crying like that." And then I just stopped crying.
You said you were having sex with Paul. Who's Paul?
One of the entertainers.
Throughout that night when you were blacking out, what, if any, drugs had you taken?
Ecstasy.
Who had given you that ecstasy?
Sean.
Jane, from your perspective, who did the most work during each of these hotel nights?
Me.
Why were these hotel nights work for you?
Objection.
That needs to be rephrased.
Why do you say that you were the one who did the most work?
it was just all me. It was just all me from just start to finish.
Jane, what, if anything, did you try to do during each of those hotel nights to try to get through them as quickly as you could?
Objection.
Sustained.
Jane, did you want each of these hotel nights to end?
Yes.
Did you do anything to try to get them to end sooner?
Objection.
That's overruled.
Yes.
What did you try to do to get these nights to end sooner?
I would try to have sex with them as soon as I could.
Try to have sex with who?
The entertainers.
And why would having sex with the entertainers as soon as you could make these nights end?
Because then that would mean they would finish faster.
What did you do to try to get to having sex with these entertainers sooner?
Just everything. Just foreplay, and then bringing them into the room.
How, if at all, did Sean react when you tried to bring the men into the room or do other things to speed this up?
He didn't like that.
How do you know he didn't like that?
Because he would ask me to slow things down or do more of the foreplay.
Do you remember what words he would use?
Objection. Time period, Judge.
That's fair. Can we get a further specification?
So Jane, focusing on the time period between May of 2021 and October of 2023, during that period, as you sit here today, can you remember any specific words that Sean said to you in response to you trying to speed up these hotel nights?
Just like, I'm not ready to see that yet. Or just like, not yet. It was just like a pullback.
Jane, at the end of a typical hotel night between May of 2021 and October 2023, how did you typically feel?
Objection.
That's overruled.
Your Honor, can we have a quick sidebar, please?
You may.
Thank you. I understand why Ms. Comey is doing this, I really do, but the witness just testified that every experience is different, and so when we generally ask her these questions about typically how she felt, I know we're going to get into each different hotel night. I just would ask that we could make this more specific because she did just testify that every experience is different.
Did she?
I wrote that down. We can find it in the transcript, those exact words. I do expect we're going to get into every single hotel night because they've marked those exhibits and admitted them. I think that this line of questioning is it is too general and prejudicial because we have to go into each separate incident. That's what's alleged here. That's my objection.
Well, there's maybe a form of objection that you might want to ask the witness if there was a typical way that she felt
Yes, Your Honor.
at these events.
I can do that.
But if Ms. Comey did do that, then why would it be improper for her to ask what that typical feeling was? If you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Ms. Comey has been asking what the typical, and when she does that and cabins it to this time period, I really haven't been objecting, but I think it's now been multiple hours of that, the typical feelings, and I really would just ask that we get into specifics given the witness has just testified about every experience being different.
Understood.
That's what I'm getting at.
Understood. Is there going to be a lot more on this particular point?
No, Your Honor, but I would want to check the transcript, but I thought yesterday and today she said there was a typical pattern and there was a typical routine.
I think there was a typical pattern, but I think there was some testimony this morning that the things he would say, for instance, would be different each time. And so I would think that's why I'm saying that if you ask the predicate question, I think you may be able to ask these questions.
I see. Thank you, Your Honor. I understand.
I think in addition to saying that he said different things every day, I think and maybe Ms. Comey was surprised by the answer because I think Ms. Comey asked something about a typical experience and I think the witness said each one was different. Well, Ms. Comey can clarify you're in your examination, so you can clarify those types of things.
I am, Your Honor. I think she said how many rounds was different each time, but anyway.
Here's just a general thing that might help us.
Yes.
On some of these objections, the defense is not really objecting where there is anything that would approach a leading question or where there is some assumption of facts that may not be in evidence. But I think that when we're talking about these particular hotel nights, it is important to be very careful about those types of things. And I think if you do that, then you're not going to draw any objection from the defense.
Understood, Your Honor.
That's the general guidance.
Understood.
All right. Ms. Comey, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jane, in your experience, did you feel typically the same way after each one of these nights, or did you feel different each time?
I would typically feel the same.
Could you tell us how you would typically feel?
With Sean, I would feel really happy to end my night with Sean, but I would really cite to block out just how sad I felt after.
And did you and Sean typically do the same thing after one of these hotel nights was over, or did you do different things?
Typically, how we would end the night, we would end it together.
And typically, would you end up going to the same place?
His residence.
Is that where you would typically go after one of these nights?
Yes.
And could you tell us typically what you would do when you went to his residence after one of these nights?
I would make sure I would just make sure that he was like showered and just clean. And I would cook for him. I would massage him. I would put on his favorite show. And then I would finally get to cuddle with him and sleep with him.
When you say him, are you talking about Sean?
Yes.
Jane, I want to keep focusing on the time period between May 2021 and October 2023. During that period, were there any parts of these hotel nights that you enjoyed?
Can you repeat the question?
Were there any points in these hotel nights that you enjoyed?
Just to be with Sean.
When would you get to be with Sean during a typical hotel night during the same period?
After being with an entertainer and at the very end.
Throughout your relationship with Sean between May of 2021 and October of 2023, would you sometimes text Sean after these hotel nights?
Yes.
And would you typically text him the same kind of thing or different kind of things from one of those hotel nights?
Probably just to say I love him.
And in between these texts, these nights, these hotel nights, about how often would you text with Sean?
Often.
And what, if any, sexually explicit texts would you send to Sean in between hotel nights?
I would send sexually explicit text messages.
Why did you and Sean send sexually explicit text messages in between hotel nights?
Just to tell him how I was feeling.
And focusing on what you just said, how you were feeling. When you sent those sexually explicit text messages that you're talking about, who were you indicating you wanted to have sex with?
Sean.
Did you ever send Sean text messages suggesting you wanted to have sex with someone else?
Yes.
About how many times?
Probably a lot.
Why?
Because it was part of the fantasy.
Whose fantasy?
Sean's.
What, if any, conversations do you remember having with Sean about him wanting you to text him about fantasy?
Objection. Time period, please.
That's sustained.
Jane, between May of 2021 and October of 2023, did you have any conversations with Sean about what he would like you to text him?
Yes.
About how many of these conversations do you remember?
A good amount.
Were they all essentially the same?
Yes.
Can you tell us about them, please?
Just like me saying that I wanted a guy, and just to kind of play up on that.
Sorry, in this conversation, were you telling Sean you wanted a guy?
Yes.
And why were you telling him you wanted a guy?
Because I knew that would turn him on, and he was saying like, be explicit. Tell me what are you going to do? Like, what do you want? Something like that.
Who was saying be explicit?
Sean.
And when Sean told you to be explicit, what did you understand he was telling you to do?
To text these type of things?
When you sent these text messages, did you want to be having sex with other men?
No.
Then why did you say you did in these messages?
Because I wanted to turn my lover on.
Ms. Gavin, can we please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit A1044 and jump to page 12, please? And could we zoom in on the top left message? Jane, who sent this message?
I did.
Who did you send it to?
Sean.
What's the date?
November 9th, 2021.
And what did you write to Sean on that day?
I said, I'm horny for you.
Why did you send him that?
Because that's how I was feeling for him.
Who did you want to have sex with?
Sean.
Can we look at the next two messages, please? How did Sean respond?
What you want to do. Be explicit.
What did you understand Sean was telling you when he wrote to be explicit?
To play in a fantasy talk.
What kind of fantasy talk?
Where I would talk about other men and their privates or just something sexual like that.
Ms. Gavin, can we please pull up pages 13 and 14 side by side? And can we zoom in on the left to middle? Now, Jane, you don't need to read this out loud, but did you write to Sean?
Yes.
Why did you write that?
Because I know he would like that.
Did you actually want to do this?
No.
We can take this down, thank you. And now can we please go to the top two texts on the right? Jane, I'm not going to make you read this. I'll read it. Did you write to Sean, like that's the only and last I'm supposed to have, stroking a hard next to me while a hard one is inside me.
Yes, I wrote that
Why did you write that?
because I knew it would turn him on.
Did you actually want that?
No.
We can take this exhibit down. Thank you. Now, you referenced Paul in that text. Who is Paul?
He's an entertainer.
Is that the same Paul you talked about earlier in the instance when you ended up crying?
Yes.
Now, later on in your relationship, Jane, did you send Sean texts telling him you wanted to stop having these hotel nights?
Yes.
Did you send him those texts once or more than once?
More than once.
And later on in your relationship from 2021, did you also tell Sean in person that you wanted to stop having these hotel nights?
Objection. Time period, please.
I'm happy to rephrase, Your Honor.
All right.
Jane, the texts we looked at were in November of 2021. How early was that in your relationship?
Fairly early.
And at that point, how were you feeling about these hotel nights?
I didn't like them, and I was realizing that this was becoming the dynamic of what we were.
And how did you feel realizing that this was becoming the dynamic of what you and Sean were?
Just confused by it. Just scared by how often it started to become. I was uncomfortable with it.
Now, later on in your relationship in 2023, did you have in-person conversations with Sean in which you told him you wanted to stop having these hotel nights?
Yes.
Once or more than once?
Probably more than once.
I'd like to pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit A10459, and if we could please jump to page 9. Can we please zoom in on the middle text? Jane, what's the date of this text?
September 17th, 2023.
So is this a little less than 2 years after the text we were just looking at, where you were talking fantasy talk?
Yes.
Who sent this text message?
I sent this text message to Sean.
Would you read it for us, please?
I wish we could jog this back to when we first started dating and just getting to know each other. Ever since I opened Pandora's box, I've never been able to close it. One night of fun turned into the entirety of our relationship. And now it's all I'm expected to do and get called for. It's hurting me because I'm so much more than being loved in the dark hotel rooms, doing things that make me feel disgusted with myself. I'm confusing your lust for me as real love. My heart is really in this and it's breaking. I don't want you to play this role. I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. It's dark, sleazy, and makes me feel disgusted with myself. I feel like it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you in fear of losing the roof over my head. I don't want to keep feeling like that anymore. I'm crying as I type this. We just need to talk like adults and figure out where we'll go from here.
Jane, I want to ask you a few questions about this message. First, when you referenced why you pay for the house at this point, where were you living without saying the address?
I was living at this new place that he got me.
The new place where Sean was paying rent?
Yes.
And for about how long had Sean been paying your rent as of September of 2023?
I think about 5 months or so.
And when you wrote, I feel like it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house, what are you referring to?
I was referring to these hotel nights.
And when you wrote, I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you, what were you referring to?
These hotel nights.
And I'm sorry, Jane, were you going to say something else?
Just meaning that I started to feel obligated here, that I had to perform, and just feeling obligated to him at that point.
At this point in time, what were you afraid would happen if you refused to perform on these hotel nights?
But he would take it away.
That who would take what away?
That Sean would take the house away.
Can we zoom back out, please? How did Sean respond to your text?
He said, "Girl, stop."
And we'll talk about that and other messages more later, but first, I want to take a step back. Can we take this down, please? What is the longest hotel night you can remember?
I would say one of these New Year's ones. Or a New Year's one.
New Year's what year?
I think 2022.
How long did the hotel night in New Year's 2022 last, approximately?
I think like 3 or 3.5 days.
Did you sleep during that time?
Not until the end.
And between May of 2021 and October of 2023, what's the shortest hotel night you can remember?
I would say 12 hours.
And on average, between May of 2021 and October 2023, on average, how long did those hotel nights last?
Like 24 to 30 hours.
Did you ever get to sleep during a hotel night?
No.
How did you stay awake for so long?
I would take ecstasy. I would drink caffeine. I would just try to drink water. I would try to order myself smoothies or protein shakes.
During these hotel nights, again, focusing on the period between May of 2021 and October of 2023, do you remember seeing drugs in these hotel rooms?
Yes.
Did you see drugs in every hotel room or just some of the hotel rooms?
Every hotel room.
What drugs do you remember seeing in these hotel rooms?
Objection.
It's overruled.
You can answer.
I would see ecstasy, Molly, cocaine, pink powder, which I believe is called 2C, and I would see weed.
You mentioned 2C. Where did you hear the term 2C from?
Through Sean.
Did you ever try 2C?
Maybe once early on.
What do you remember about trying it?
I didn't like it.
Why not?
Because it was like a hallucinogen. Like I felt weird. Like the floors were shaky and I felt weird.
Of the drugs you've just described, how many of those did you personally use?
I personally used ecstasy and Molly the most. Mostly ecstasy. And the others, not so much.
Did you try the others?
Yes.
And who gave you all of those drugs?
Sean.
Have you ever seen Sean use drugs?
Yes.
In what context?
In these rooms,
Did you see him use drugs in every room or just some of these rooms?
every room,
What drugs did you see Sean use?
all of them.
Did you ever see the entertainers in these rooms use drugs?
No.
Do you know why entertainers did not use drugs in front of you?
It was one of my rules.
What do you mean it was one of your rules?
I had one rule, and that was nobody takes any drugs.
When you say nobody takes any drugs, you've just described yourself and Sean taking drugs, so can you explain what you mean?
I mean that I would tell the entertainers that they couldn't take any drugs around me
Why did you tell them that?
because I didn't know how they would be on a drug and then be on my body and be out of control. I didn't want them to be out of control when they were with me.
You said ecstasy was the drug you used most often. Do I have that right?
Yes.
How did the ecstasy you took make you feel in these hotel rooms?
I would feel just a surge of like sexual energy. I would feel completely like euphoric and really turned on and had a lot of really positive energy, really optimistic and just happy.
Between May of 2021 and October of 2023, how did you feel about using all these drugs?
I just felt like I had to take them
Why did you feel like you had to take them?
because when I wouldn't, it would just feel too real, like the atmosphere. And I didn't want to feel like it was too real. I wanted to kind of just, I don't know, just feel like it was just, I don't know, it just made things easier.
Jane, did you ever try to do one of these hotel nights without using drugs?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
I want to talk about those times, okay?
Okay.
About when was the first time?
It was with Paul one time.
Do you remember about what year it was?
I would say the middle of me and Sean
And why did you not try to use drugs on that particular night?
because I was just tired of doing that to my body.
What do you remember from that first time you tried to do one of these nights without drugs?
I just remember I didn't like it. I just didn't, the fantasy of it all wasn't there. It just wasn't easy. It just was too real that this was happening.
So what ended up happening?
I ended up asking for a pill.
Who did you ask for a pill?
Sean,
What did he do in response?
he gave me one.
And then did you take it?
Yes,
How did you feel after you took it?
much better.
And what happened after that?
The same routine.
About when was the second time you did one of these nights without drugs?
Toward the end of 2023.
Do you remember about what month in 2023?
Yes, October.
Why did you do one of those nights without drugs in October of 2023?
Around this time, I just really wanted my partner to get sober. I just really cared so much about Sean's health, and I could see that he just was extensively partying on top of just so many pills that he takes daily for I don't know what. And I just really wanted him to get clean and just get better. And he said, okay, I'm going to do 30 days without anything and I'll be sober. But let's just have one more sobriety party. Just one sobriety party
Where was this sobriety party?
at a hotel
Do you remember which hotel?
at L'Hermitage,
In what city?
Beverly Hills.
What drugs did you use that night at L'Hermitage?
None.
What drugs did you see Sean use, if any?
I believe ecstasy and cocaine. I don't know.
About how long did that sobriety party last?
Too long.
Do you remember how long?
Maybe close to 12 to 18 hours.
What do you remember happening at the sobriety party? Could you walk us through it, please?
I just remember that it was like this typical routine, except I didn't take anything. And I was in an outfit, and I was with Sean, and the room was decorated, and I was just getting ready, and I remember it was like the first guy, then a second guy, and then after the second guy, I went to the bathroom, and I just was not feeling well.
What happened when you went to the bathroom after having 2 entertainers in this night?
I threw up.
What happened after you threw up?
Sean came in, and I told him that I had just thrown up, and he was like, "That's good. You'll feel better now that you've thrown up. So let's go, because the guy is here, the third guy."
What happened next?
And then I was with the third guy.
How did you feel to do that sobriety party without drugs?
I hated it so much.
How did that experience compare to all of the other hotel nights you did while using drugs?
It was just, I was just disgusted. I was just repulsed. I was just so mad at myself for doing that. I just deeply regretted that.
Jane, during that sobriety party, did you have sex with the first 2 entertainers in front of Sean before you threw up?
Yes.
And then did you have sex with the third entertainer after you threw up?
Yes.
Your Honor, this might be a good time for a break, if that's all right.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back in 15 minutes. Thank you, members of the jury. All rise.